Welcome to Push to Pass podcast with JP Murray, a discussion about business, racing, sports, and life. This podcast delivers insights on what makes businesses, teams, and people successful based on real-life business experiences. Following a career with America's largest associations, JP Murray founded the Murray Company, one of Washington, D.C.'s most successful consulting firms. The company was acquired successfully and enabled him to launch JP Murray Racing, a business development and sponsorship agency for auto racing teams. Here is JP.
Welcome to the Push to Pass podcast. It's JP from Indianapolis. I can see the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're going to talk about hiring, firing, acquiring. Leaders can be defensive about making change, to be honest. In their heart and soul, they know that there are problems that exist they need to address, but whether it's ego or whether they're defensive or change is uncomfortable, just don't do a lot about it. Today, I'm not asking you to change anything, but I'm asking you to try an exercise. Just write these things down. Just start to get your head around them. First, hire. Who would be the three people you would want to bring onto your team, and what would you have them fix in your company? Second, fire. Who are the three clients that you should eliminate? Their values don't align or their financials pale in comparison to your other clients. Just not a fit. Your company would be better off by not addressing their needs. Then think about the three employees that in your heart of hearts that you would not have on board any longer. If you segment your employees and your team members into A, B's, and C's, who are the C's? And the fact of the matter is, you know who they are. In fact, most of your team does. Write them down. I'm not saying address it right now. I'm saying start to get your head around it some. Then finally, acquire. Who are the three companies that you could help right now? But how would you help them as a new client? Start to monitor them, watch their business trajectory, and take a long view of how to bring them on board. And while we are talking about acquisition, let's cover that a little bit more. It's tough to stay inspired doing the hard work. Regardless of the business that we're in, sometimes, the boss needs to take out the trash or you need to acquire new clients. And if we've got a small business, we've got to do them both. You might not enjoy this acquisition part of the business and the work becomes really tedious for you. But you can reframe these items into areas that you enjoy or are actually good at and do the work well. So here's an example. I don't like cold calling. I bought into that it's really a waste of time, doesn't deliver value. You don't develop great relationships doing it. But I also recognize you must engage people, make them aware of your brand, build rapport, start to make them familiar with kind of the values and the insights that you have. So instead of pounding the phones, I chose very intentionally to develop video content, establish a podcast, write blogs, launch webinars. Then I started to consolidate all of this content and I logged it to publish a book. All of these things built awareness and established an audience. And when I watched the audience open the newsletter, engage in the podcast, register for a webinar, these are the folks that I called to follow up with because they've already shown that they're interested in the content. And the content that I talk about is based on the business and the service that I provide. So that became my cold call. And this is the platform I use to develop a business. And I enjoyed almost every minute of it because I wasn't doing sales. I was doing content development and using that to develop the sales platform. So find your enjoyment to get the work done. In effect, whistle while you work. Hey, I hope this is helpful. I can't wait to chat with you next week on the Push to Pass podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Push to Pass podcast with JP Murray, a discussion about business, racing, sports, and life. If you would like to sponsor Push to Pass, send an email to jp@jpmurray.com. Follow JP on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. His website is jpmurray.com. Until next time, push yourself to pass the competition. Thanks for listening.